Daniel Fry, an experienced journalist and editor of The Guardian magazine, was going through a difficult period in his career. A recently lost lawsuit had seriously damaged his reputation, and he was looking for a way to get back to the top of the journalistic world. It was at this point that he received an unexpected call from a lawyer representing William Hartman, the head of an influential business dynasty. Hartman invited Daniel to meet at his estate on a remote island. At the meeting, which took place in a majestic study with a panoramic view of the cold sea, William spoke about a secret that had haunted his family for decades. His niece Harriet disappeared 10 years ago during a family gathering, and all attempts to find her have been in vain. The police declared it a lost cause, William said, dusting off an old photo of Harriet. But I know someone in the family is hiding the truth. I want you to find out. The offer was more than tempting. William promised full access to the family archives, a generous financial reward, and most importantly for Daniel, information that could restore his damaged reputation. However, Daniel realized that it was not just about the fee or the opportunities. There was a desperate desire to know the truth in William's demeanor that made his offer even more intriguing. "Why me?" asked Daniel, looking intently into William's eyes. "You are a man who is not afraid to seek the truth, even where it is dangerous," Hartman replied. "I need someone who won't stop at family secrets." Daniel accepted the offer, although he sensed that this investigation might be more difficult than he could have imagined. The next day, he began preparing to travel to Hartman's Island. Daniel Fry arrived on Hartman's Island on a cloudy morning. The island was isolated, with sharp cliffs surrounded by the cold sea. On its territory was an estate that seemed perfect for family grandeur, but at the same time hid many dark secrets. The huge Victorian-style house was in good condition, but its atmosphere was unnerving. Inside, Daniel was met by William Hartman himself. His gloomy look and reserved manner betrayed the fatigue of decades of investigation. He briefly familiarized the journalist with the current situation. Every member of the family remained a suspect, and they all lived on the island or frequently visited it. Daniel began to introduce the main figures. Elizabeth Hartman, Harriet's older sister. She had a reputation for keeping out of family affairs. Her demeanor was reserved, but her eyes betrayed a suspicious caution. "I loved Harriet, but she was a difficult person," she said during a brief conversation with Daniel. Gustav Hartman, William's older brother. Gustav was known for his tough character. He avoided talking about the day Harriet disappeared and was aggressive. "This is all pointless. Harriet just ran away, and we're spending years looking for someone who doesn't want to be found," he said. Olivia Hartman, Harriet's cousin, once considered a close friend, her nervous behavior and avoidance of eye contact raised suspicions. "It hurts me to talk about it," she said when Daniel asked about her relationship with Harriet. Each of the family members looked like they were hiding something. They were wary, avoiding direct answers. Daniel noticed that most of them were not so much concerned about Harriet's disappearance as they were about their own reputations. The Hartman estate was not only a home, but also a place where the keys to the past were kept. William allowed Daniel access to the archive, which contained family photos, documents, and personal diaries. Daniel was most interested in a photo taken a few hours before Harriet's disappearance. In it, she stood apart from the crowd, looking to the side, as if something had frightened her. This image stuck in his mind as a key clue. Other findings included letters Harriet had written shortly before her disappearance. Her handwriting betrayed anxiety, and the text often referred to fear of someone she did not name directly. "I can't live in this terror anymore," one of the letters read. Daniel Fry realized that it would be impossible to cope with the case alone. The Hartman family archives were enormous, and the number of tangled connections and ulterior motives was growing every day. He needed someone who could analyze the information and find what was hidden from view. On the recommendation of a friend, Daniel turned to Leah Morton, a well-known hacker and private investigator. Leah was mysterious and straightforward, with a stern look that left no room for idle conversation. She lived in a small apartment that looked more like the headquarters of a think tank: computers, servers, piles of documents and notebooks. Daniel arrived unannounced. Leah was suspicious of him at first. "I don't work with people who come in off the street," she said. However, Daniel, knowing that this was his only chance, began to talk about the case. "It's not just a disappearance," he said. "This is a real tangle of lies that goes back decades. And if you help me unravel it, it could be a challenge that will not leave you indifferent." These words piqued Leah's interest. She got up from her chair and looked at Daniel carefully. "Well, tell me more," she said. Daniel laid out all the details. Harriet's disappearance, the suspicious letters, the disputes in the Hartman family, and the photographs he had found in the archives. Leah, hearing about the photo, asked to see it. When Daniel pulled out the photo, she immediately noticed several details that had not caught her eye before. "It's not just Harriet that's important here," she said, pointing to the shadows behind the girl. "It looks like a reflection of another person who was standing nearby. Perhaps this is the key to understanding who might have been with her at the moment she decided to run away or disappear." Leah agreed to join the investigation on one condition: she would supervise her part of the work without Daniel's interference. Her first step was to analyze Harriet's letters. She quickly discovered hidden hints of fear of a family member. Leah also gained access to the Hartmans' financial records, uncovering large sums of money that disappeared without a trace in the year of Harriet's disappearance. Using her technical skills, Leah hacked into secure databases that contained classified police reports. She discovered that young women had been going missing in the region where Hartman's Island was located for several years before Harriet's disappearance. The police did not connect these cases, but Leah suspected that this might be part of a larger picture. Her style of work was different from Daniel's, but it made for an effective tandem. Daniel knew how to have conversations and get information from people, while Leah was adept at facts and technical details. They became a team that combined intuition and cold calculation. "Harriet didn't just disappear," Leah said one evening as she looked through old photos. "It was part of a bigger plan, and we're going to find out who's behind it." Daniel and Leah gradually began to uncover the dark secrets that the Hartman family had been hiding for decades. The archives, letters, and photographs collected at the estate revealed new layers of tension and conflict. But Leah's most important findings were in the family's digital footprints. Looking through emails and financial records, Leah discovered a series of unusual transactions. Large sums of money were being transferred from the family's accounts to unknown offshore companies. These transactions coincided with Harriet's disappearance. Leah realized that someone was trying to hide their actions through a complex financial scheme. At the same time, Daniel continued to interview family members. Olivia admitted that Harriet and Gustav often had quarrels. She always said that her uncle was dangerous. She knew something, but she was afraid to say it, Olivia said, nervously wringing her hands. An additional search of the paper archives led to Harriet's diary, which was kept in a secret drawer of her old desk. The diary revealed that Harriet was afraid of someone in her family. In her notes, she mentioned, "I have to leave this place. They know what I know, and it's dangerous." No specific person was mentioned, but the hints pointed to someone influential and tough. One of the key clues was in a photo that Leah had analyzed earlier. Using special software, she was able to improve the image quality. In the background, in the reflection of the window, she could see the figure of a man. This man was standing too close to Harriet at the time she was photographed. Leah checked this against other photos and found that it was Gustav Hartman. Leah then turned her attention to previously hidden police reports, which she managed to hack. It turned out that several young women had disappeared in the region where the Hartman's Island was located a few years before Harriet's disappearance. All of them were similar in age and appearance. The police did not connect these cases, but the time and place of the events were the same. This increased suspicions that the killer was acting within the family. At the same time, Daniel found out another important detail. While talking to Elizabeth, he learned that on the night of Harriet's disappearance, there was a violent quarrel between her and Gustav on the island. "I heard them yelling at each other in the study," Elizabeth admitted, "but I didn't know what the conversation was about." All of these findings confirmed that Harriet could have been the victim of a crime involving her own family. But who exactly was behind it? Daniel and Leah knew they were getting closer to an answer. As Daniel and Leah began to uncover key moments in Harriet's disappearance, it became apparent that their investigation was beginning to disturb someone in the Hartman family. The first signs of danger came when Leah noticed that her laptop had been hacked. She quickly determined that it had been done by someone on the estate's internal network. The hacker tried to delete files related to the analysis of the family's financial transactions. Daniel also encountered strange incidents. While traveling for an interview with one of Harriet's old friends, his car suddenly broke down. The mechanic who was called to repair it confirmed that the brakes had been damaged on purpose. "Someone obviously doesn't want you to continue with this case," he said. In addition, at night, unknown persons broke into the house where Daniel and Leah were staying. Although the door was not broken, Daniel's room was empty of his notes, including copies of photographs and transcripts of interviews. "They left the key," Leah said. "They only wanted the information that could expose the truth." Soon after, William Hartman received an anonymous threatening letter. It read, "Stop digging into the past or you will be sorry." The letter was unsigned, but the characteristic writing style and tone hinted at a family member. Despite the danger, Leah continued to analyze the data. She noticed that someone was monitoring her computer in real time. Using her skills, she was able to locate the intruder. It was an office in the mansion that Gustav Hartman often used. "We're getting too close to the truth," Leah said. "And that scares them." Daniel, in turn, realized that safety was no longer guaranteed. He began to be cautious when talking to family members. Each of them tried to steer the conversation away from Harriet's disappearance. Especially Gustav, who frankly stated, "You are digging up something that has long been forgotten. This will not lead to anything good." One evening, while Leah was working in her room, the electricity in the house suddenly went out. Later, she heard footsteps in the hallway. She managed to barricade the door and call Daniel. Together they found the living room light off and the feeling that someone had recently left the room. "They want us to be afraid," Daniel said. "But this just confirms that we're on the right track." They moved their key records to online storage and began looking for allies outside the estate. After weeks of intense investigation, Leah and Daniel were closer to solving Harriet's disappearance. The evidence they gathered began to form a coherent picture that revealed gruesome details. One of the key moments was the discovery of an old warehouse that belonged to the Hartman family. Leah found a mention of this warehouse in financial documents that reflected regular expenses for its maintenance. Daniel and Leah went there, despite the risk. Inside, they found the remains of Harriet's old belongings, notebooks, children's photo albums, and a jewelry box that she always kept with her. Inside the box was Harriet's diary, which became the decisive piece of evidence. The entries described the numerous abuses and threats she received from her uncle Gustav. Harriet wrote that her uncle had repeatedly frightened her and tried to silence her about his crimes. The last entry was particularly disturbing. "I know he won't stop. If something happens to me, look for the truth in the warehouse." This discovery changed the course of the investigation. Leah recovered old phone records and discovered that it was Gustav who had called on the night of Harriet's disappearance. This confirmed that he could have been the last person to see her alive. Daniel and Leah also found old police reports that had previously been hidden. One of them mentioned witnesses who had seen Gustav pushing someone toward a car near the warehouse that night. This evidence was not properly investigated because of the Hartmans' influence with the local police. Daniel organized a meeting with William, Elizabeth, Olivia, and Gustav. During this meeting, Leah presented the evidence she had collected: photographs, financial records, phone calls, and Harriet's diary. Gustav tried to deny it, but his nervous demeanor betrayed his fear. "You've been hiding the truth all these years," Daniel said, showing the diary. "Your cruelty has destroyed this family's life." Gustav eventually broke down. He admitted that Harriet had learned of his involvement in the disappearances of other women in the region. When she threatened to tell him about it, he decided to silence her. He kidnapped her that night, but she escaped during the struggle. Gustav thought she was dead, but her body was never found. Leah, using financial transactions, established that Harriet had survived and had been hiding abroad for years. Gustav suspected this, but could not find her. Daniel made contact with Harriet through her bank records, and she agreed to return to tell her story. Her testimony confirmed all the charges against Gustav. The police arrested him for numerous crimes, including attempted murder and concealment of other crimes. The revelation of the truth was a relief for William, but it left an indelible mark on the entire family. Daniel and Leah had accomplished their mission, but they knew that the shadow of this story would remain with them forever. Harriet Hartman's return to her home island was an emotional culmination for all involved in the investigation. Her presence, alive and unwavering after a decade of concealment, forced the family members to confront the shadows of the past once again. Harriet appeared on the island, accompanied by police and a lawyer. Her calm but determined posture immediately attracted attention. She had the look of a tired but strong person who had gone through enormous hardships. Her first meeting with William, her uncle who had been searching for the truth for years, was touching. He could not hold back his tears as he hugged his niece. "I thought I would never see you again," William whispered. Harriet replied, "Your efforts have brought me back. Thank you for your faith." At a family reunion, Harriet told her story. After the night Gustav tried to kidnap her, she escaped by hiding in a nearby forest. From there she managed to get to the city, from where she later emigrated. Throughout her life abroad, she was afraid that Gustav would find her. She changed her name, her job, and her place of residence, but all the while she wanted to return to expose the truth. The family members present at the meeting had mixed emotions. Elizabeth was impressed by Harriet's courage and condemned Gustav's actions. Olivia avoided meeting Harriet's gaze, realizing her passive role in the past. "I should have been more supportive of you back then," Olivia admitted. Harriet replied briefly, "You can't change the past, but you can change your future." The police used Harriet's testimony to finally close the case. Her testimony became the key to the case against Gustav. The court quickly delivered a verdict, finding him guilty of crimes including attempted murder, blackmail, and concealing evidence. For Daniel and Leah, the case was a victory, but with a bitter aftertaste. Daniel, who had worked on the investigation, finally felt that he had restored his name in journalism. Leah realized that the case had become not only a professional challenge for her, but also a personal lesson in the limits of human cruelty and the power of survival. On the last night before they left, Daniel and Leah met Harriet on the terrace of the estate. She thanked them for their work. "Without you, this truth would have remained hidden," Harriet said. Daniel replied, "The truth always finds a way. We just helped it come to light." The discovery of Harriet Hartman's disappearance and Gustav's crimes put an end to years of secrets that had poisoned the Hartman family. The island, which had been a symbol of their greatness, now became a place where there was an opportunity for renewal. After the trial, Gustav was sentenced to life in prison. His crimes, not only the attempted kidnapping of Harriet, but also numerous other atrocities that came to light during the investigation, left an indelible mark on the family's reputation. William Hartman, who had been trying to find his niece for years, decided to rethink his role in the dynasty. He said he would use his fortune to help victims of violence and exploitation. Elizabeth and Olivia struggled to cope with the guilt of not seeing the signs or ignoring them. Elizabeth, who had always stayed out of family matters, decided to start working with Harriet at her new foundation. Olivia, who thought she was too weak to stand up to Gustav, chose to reinvent her life through therapy and community service. Harriet decided to stay on the island and turn the family estate into a shelter for victims of violence and a place where people could find peace and a new beginning. She made this project her mission, infusing it with her energy and experience of survival. Her strength of spirit and dedication inspired everyone who came in contact with her. "I am not afraid anymore," she said during the opening of the shelter. "This house is no longer a place where secrets are hidden. It will be a place where the truth is revealed and healing begins." Daniel returned to journalism with his reputation restored. His articles on the Hartman case became a sensation, bringing him the recognition he had long sought. But for him, the case was more than just a professional triumph. It changed his view of justice and the power of human endurance. Leah Morton continued her work as a researcher and hacker. Her experience in the Hartman case made her even more in demand, but she always returned to this story as one that changed her perception of human relationships. "This case proved to me that even in the darkest of circumstances, you can find light," she said. The island, which had been a place of mystery and fear, was gradually turning into a symbol of rebirth. People began to come there not to see the grandeur of the estate, but to find help and inspiration. What had once been a symbol of a closed and destroyed family has now become a place of openness and hope.